how do you take a business process that's quite rigid, very strict on what you're actually trying to do and how you drive the value, and then you utilize the power in Gen AI to improve that business process. So yes, there's work to do as you're looking for the similarities within your own unstructured data. You have work to do, which is where we use a HANA vector engine, and then to be able to safely choose a language learning model, or the language learning model of your choice, to go out and ask it the right question and come back with the right answer. Yeah, there's work to do that safely and securely, but there's value behind all of this as well.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of The Never-Ending Climb for companies running SAP to unlock a stronger supply chain and procurement. With me today is John Gibson. John is the global lead for the Center of Excellence for the Business Technology Platform. And that's where all of the new cool stuff gets done for SAP. They build their own products on this. And he's also the business leader working across all the global regions to help support them, to help get them what they need. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Sean. Happy to be here.
So one of the things that we've had the privilege of doing is working with your team to go and help unlock some of those first use cases that are productive and really adding value. And we wanted to share, what you're seeing globally about, AI, Gen AI, DataSphere, et cetera, some of these technical things, but there's all of this hype. And what are you seeing past the hype with AI and Gen AI?
Yeah, there is a lot of hype, and we are really busy. A substantial portion of my COE team includes a very senior data science group, so we're very, very busy on all of this with customers. I would actually say out of everything I've witnessed in the last 20 years at SAP, it's the busiest that we've been on this, and it really is cutting through the hype. What we see at customers is, unlike traditional AI that was purely within the IT group, the impact of Gen AI is at a consumer level. Like, people go and plan things on ChatGPT, so they learn about it, and that puts pressure on the IT groups out there, and so they're coming to us and asking for help, and the help is very much cut through the hype and get to the reality. We have a saying that we use, ROI before AI, that we use. It's just like everything else. These are business initiatives. We're looking for business value and a business result. And a lot of the work that we do, and I can describe some of this later, is we found that business value with either utilizing Gen AI or a combination of Gen AI and traditional AI.
That combo, I know our team has found that so important, because there's the hype and there's parts of it that it's good at, and then if you stretch it just a little too far, and that line takes a little bit of work to find, and depending on the use case, if you stretch it a little too far, you end up in that dreaded area where you start getting hallucinations, and none of the businesses running SAP can afford to have hallucinations in their supply chain.
Yeah,
that's a really critical tipping point to identify the limits of where it can be productively applied and trusted, because that 1 out of 10 is too often for there to be a hallucination.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that tolerance, the human factor of trust, it's non-negotiable.
Well, we have to understand what we're doing, Sean, here in the business world. A lot of what you see on Gen AI are creating a picture or a video. In the business world, we're not here to create a picture of a cat on a surfboard, right? That's not what we're here to do. We need to use this, and like you say, the accuracy of the answer, but not just the accuracy. We've got to understand about the security and the ethics behind what we're asking and the answer that we give as well. This all has to be at corporate enterprise grade standards. So we can utilize what's out there for the consumer, for the individual, for the public, but we have to do it in a way that adheres to enterprise standards. This is the number one issue that we hear from our customers, number one.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the security, there's the privacy, there's the reliability, the
Yeah.
trustworthiness, and then the governance around it and the ethics of whether or not any kind of biases are introduced in it as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, we see this, and we have like the three-way tagline. I'm not a marketing person, so customers will hear this, but I actually like this. We call it relevant, reliable, and responsible. And
Yeah.
that is so, well, the other R is, for me, that's so realistic about what we need to do is that, the relevancy based on what we're actually doing within SAP and what the businesses are actually doing, the reliability, the accuracy of the results. Like you say, an inaccurate answer goes against driving business value, then why do it if it's not reliable? And then responsibility at SAP, you for your customers. If you don't hit enterprise grade standards for security, data security, access security, then you can be in serious trouble. So we have to be able to adhere to that as we go out and we utilize the language learning models.
Yeah. Those critical success factors, I think in a lot of the proofs of concept that we've seen, or the skunkworks sort of, hey, we could throw ChatGPT at X, and then you poke it a little bit, and then you realize that unless you're really careful, some of what you're putting in there for either help me draft this language for this contract or whatever it was, those use cases sometimes put information at risk or can expose back things that are incorrect.
Yeah.
That capability to learn is so exciting, but balanced with those three R's, I think is a great simple way that people can take away and apply this to their use cases, to their filter and the success criteria.
Yeah, for sure. You have to marry up what Gen AI gives you. If you think about the word gen is generative, to create
Yeah.
something, right? As a comparison to traditional AI, where generally it's giving you something that's a number or a probability for to look at and understand or take an action on. So there's a distinct difference in the capability with Gen AI as a subset of AI overall. So it's giving you something that's very much a language-based solution, understanding something in a language base and giving you something back in a language base, which is super helpful, especially as a lot of the world either English speakers or English as a second language, and things in the systems are in English. English is a very broad language set, right? We have so many words in the English language that mean the
Yep.
same thing, and so this is great for Shakespeare, but not so great for technology when you're trying to compare things. So you can use the word great, fantastic, magnificent, brilliant. It all means the same thing.
There.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
so,
it's so true.
yeah, and so you have these languages in unstructured documents, and it's been very, very difficult to extract any value and look for similarities. This is where your language learning model provides a tremendous amount of value. However, how do you take a business process
Yeah.
that's quite rigid, very strict on what you're actually trying to do and how you drive the value, and then you utilize the power in Gen AI to improve that business process? So yes, there's work to do as you're looking for the similarities within your own unstructured data. You have work to do, which is where we use a HANA vector engine, and then to be able to safely choose a language learning model, or the language learning model of your choice, to go out and ask it the right question and come back with the right answer. Yeah, there's work to do that safely and securely, but there's value behind all of this as well. I'll give you a good example actually that the team have been working on.
Yeah.
I
Brilliant.
can't mention the company name right now. I have a suspicion that we might be seeing this example on stage at some point in the, in the future.
Yeah.
But it's great. I love this example. It's very realistic. We're working with a company. They do a lot of maintenance work orders. Now, we found that the value in the work order document was actually in the descriptive text of the work that had been done. So maintenance engineers go out, they do the work, and they write what happened. But as you're right, it's just like me and you talking. We can use a million different words when we're talking, but there's tremendous value. So when there's a new maintenance work order, the chief maintenance engineer reads through all the old documents to read what's gone on in the old documents. That takes hours and hours and hours of time for somebody that's very highly paid. Now, using Gen AI, we can do that analysis of this unstructured data, and we can produce a suggested work order document very, very quickly for
Yeah.
the maintenance engineer to double check as an expert and then roll out. It's just a great example of it's a simple time saving in a process, right? In many ways, becomes more accurate as well for
Yeah.
the maintenance engineers going out. It's a good example. I'm sure we have about a million other examples that we're working on right now, as I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know one of the ones that I believe is planned for a stage nearby soon. Similarly, where there's extremely complex invoices, and there's lots of
Yeah,
tools out there that can automate invoices, but there's typically some classifications of invoices like, hydrocarbon and utilities and telephone and some of these other invoices that are thousands of lines long and need to be, again, some degree of unstructured,
mm,
brought in, validated, and then often have costs allocated out for distribution. And being able to go do that, bring the result back in, where something that used to take, 10, 15 hours to process one invoice can now be done broadly in the, not much more than the snap of a fingers with a little bit of a keen eye for like, does this still look right? Yep. And then you look over thousands of invoices and you go, the number of them that were actually tweaked is, less than a fraction of 1%. And you go, that's time savings, or there's a double digit sized team of people that were doing non-value added work that can now go do
yeah.
something that is a lot more valuable for the company. And that's,
And very
I,
practical as well, Sean. You know, what you're describing is not a cat on a surfboard picture,
yeah,
right? But it gets
yeah,
back to the fact that we've worked on business processes and improving business processes for years and years. That doesn't change. And we're utilizing this new capability to be able to do that. And it's a reason why you do this alongside an enterprise system like SAP. A lot of the biggest companies in the world are running their execution systems on SAP. And if
yeah.
people are utilizing AI, I always ask them, well, what are you doing that on? You know, you're executing your business on SAP, and then what is it that you're changing? You're changing something in the way you execute, right, on the SAP technology, which is why we're so keen for customers to work with us on this, because generally it's the SAP application we're working with on the process, and then we utilize the AI capabilities, whether embedded in the application or we're punching out on business technology platform, and then we're improving the business process itself.
It's really, really exciting. And the flexibility that I know is built in. Because the value that we're seeing is really in taking that unstructured data, taking the big, hairy, scary, complex things that people used to have to sift through manually, condensing those into, a probabilistic recommendation. And the probability, the confidence comes through and can even be assigned and demonstrated or shown of like, hey, we're 80% confident that this is exactly what you were looking for. And that kind of confidence can help guide whether or not they need to take a side eye to double check it, or whether they go, yep, probably good enough. And that's, I think, where that empathy and the people come back into it, right? Of protect the value and protect the trust, but also the transparency around the confidence and the answer that was brought back. And
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
a that's beautiful. The other thing that I really like is the flexibility with the different LLMs that can be used and to be brought in where somebody's maybe invested in building out some sort of tool, something that we were helping with is, around classification of things that are being purchased and lead times, and then probabilistically, hey, what sort of lead times would need to be updated based on what the patterns and ranges have been. That kind of thing can be done and automated so quickly, and some buffers and things like that incorporated automatically that used to take weeks of time for
Yeah,
people manually. But the flexibility, if somebody started with doing something on an LLM, they can bring that into BTP, and you've created the foundation for people to use their own LLM in the tool. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's pretty cool. And SAP doesn't always create that flexibility.
Yeah, the flexibility is critical. I think mainly because we're still relatively new here with this. And so you look at the LLMs that are out there and their technology and their capabilities, there's no doubt this is going to change dramatically over the next few years. So which LLM are you selecting and utilizing for your business? You
Yeah.
have to have that flexibility. You shouldn't be tied into one way of doing something and then have to change absolutely everything. So it's been critical for us at SAP to understand this. You know, we're in charge of the business process. This is the thing that's good for us. The LLMs are sat outside of SAP here. They're going to change quite dramatically. We give the customer the security and flexibility to select their LLM and do it in that reliable fashion as well. I think that's critical.
One of the other pieces of reliability that is often done in a way that um, I think it's a given for a lot of people that have been around the SAP ecosystem for a long time, but there's still, if you remember the set of commercials of the most interesting man in the world and the memes around, I don't always
I
change code, but
remember
when
them.
I do it in production.
Yeah.
And there's the capability to test, sandbox, move to development, move to quality, do more testing, then move to production. And I think that's probably one of the other success criteria before people go start productively using these Gen AI use cases, knowing and having the confidence and the governance around, do you have Skunkworks LLM running over here that hasn't been proven out to be ready for production?
Yeah.
And that's a great way to help govern the use and protect the reliability
Yeah, for
and
sure.
reasonability in production. So yeah, really excited to see that.
It is exciting, and also remember you can do some things really quite quickly here as well.
Yeah.
We talked about some business processes we're working on. I know you, with Conversion IS, you like to do things quickly with the
Oh
customer.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So, you know, we've even worked with a customer on they've been rolling out a new process. They have an FAQ for the process. And you know how that usually is. It's a Word document or it's stuck on SharePoint somewhere.
Yeah.
And you read through 200 questions before you get to your frequently. I mean, this is reality, right? Everybody probably
Yeah.
has it. So we just
Yeah.
stuck a very simple chatbot on top of the using Gen AI on top of the FAQ. And it sounds a bit like, well, it's fractional value. Not when it's used by 10,000 people, it's not. It like generated clear value straight away. So you can
Yeah.
do these things that are really quite quick to
Yeah.
just start using Gen AI capabilities.
Yeah. I know we've gone through several pilots internally using a couple of the, I'll call it enterprise grade, co-pilot kind of tools.
Yeah.
And the number of times that we got a hallucination back and we're like, where's the off switch? How do we turn this off? I can't use this. So, moving to the simpler LLM with the more curated data set and making sure that, trying to get it to hallucinate and proving that it's not
Mhm.
going to give a BS answer, then that's ready for prime time. And
Yeah.
that is quick and easy, but the proof points of what's really enterprise ready are so important.
Yes.
Uh, John, thank you so much for joining. If you had one thing that you wanted people to remember, say 6 weeks, 6 months later, what would you want them to remember about cutting past the hype on AI?
So I think it's an important thing. I mean, we can talk a lot about technology, and we have described what SAP does and how it connects to an LLM. But I always bear in mind I'm running a team of very senior architects and data scientists. Um, Innovation always comes back to people. So I would, if you have customers listening in on this, the people side of this is so critical, right? You need innovative people to do this, people who are excited by it, and people that can connect the technology to the business value. That it never changes. Innovation is a people process. So even though we're stuck in the middle of the technology here, I would hope people still remember that, and it is still a fundamental pillar of how they innovate moving forward.
It sure is. John, much gratitude for joining. Thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful for everybody watching. And this has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement for companies running SAP. And when you're looking for the number one add-on, you know who to call. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye bye.